The wilderness is a place of both beauty and danger, where the line between safety and peril can blur in an instant. Imagine a peaceful family retreat in a remote cabin, a group of loggers hard at work, or friends camping in the mountains, all suddenly interrupted by a powerful force of nature, a grizzly bear. From the deep forests of British Columbia to the serene slopes of the Swiss Alps, these 6 harrowing stories reveal the terrifying reality of human encounters with one of the wild's most formidable predators. Join us as we explore these 6 gripping tales of survival, where every moment counts and the wild shows no mercy. The Parker family was enjoying a peaceful evening in their remote cabin nestled deep in the woods of British Columbia. The cabin, located near the town of Golden, was a getaway they cherished, a place where they could escape the hustle of city life and connect with nature. Surrounded by dense forests and towering mountains, the cabin was isolated, offering them a true wilderness experience. John and Mary Parker, along with their 2 children, Emily and Ben, had been coming to this cabin for years. It was a place filled with memories of family hikes, cozy evenings by the fire, and the quiet beauty of the natural world. The cabin itself was rustic but comfortable, built to withstand the harsh conditions of the Canadian wilderness. The family had taken all the usual precautions when living so close to nature, storing food properly and keeping the area clean to avoid attracting wildlife. That evening, the family had settled in after a day spent exploring the nearby trails. The air outside was cold and the first signs of winter were beginning to show. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled warmly and the scent of dinner lingered in the air. They were gathered in the living room, playing a board game and enjoying the simple pleasures of cabin life. The night was calm, and the only sounds were the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant rustling of the trees in the wind. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear was wandering through the forest nearby. The bear, likely drawn by the lingering scent of food, had been moving closer to the cabin, its powerful nose leading it straight to the source. In the quiet of the night, the bear's approach went unnoticed by the family, who were absorbed in their game and unaware of the danger that was drawing near. Suddenly, the peaceful evening was shattered by a loud crash at the door. The sound was startling, breaking the calm with a force that sent a wave of fear through the cabin. John and Mary quickly realized that something was terribly wrong. The noise was not just a knock or a gust of wind, it was something much more serious. Before they could react, the front door splintered open, and the grizzly bear forced its way inside. The family froze in shock as the massive animal lumbered into the kitchen, its eyes searching for food. The bear, driven by hunger, began tearing through the room, knocking over chairs and ripping open cabinets. Pots and pans clattered to the floor as the bear's powerful claws and jaws tore through everything in its path. John, acting quickly, ushered his family into one of the bedrooms at the back of the cabin. They huddled together, their hearts pounding with fear as they listened to the destruction happening just a few feet away. The walls of the cabin, which had always felt so safe, now seemed fragile against the raw power of the grizzly. The sounds of crashing and growling filled the small space, each noise sending a fresh wave of terror through the family. The ordeal seemed to go on forever. The bear, relentless in its search for food, tore through the kitchen, leaving nothing untouched. The Parker family remained huddled together, praying that the bear would leave as quickly as it had arrived. The once cozy cabin had become a place of fear, and the family could do nothing but wait and hope that they would come out of this terrifying encounter unharmed. The Parker family remained huddled together in the small bedroom, listening to the relentless destruction happening in their kitchen. The sounds of the bear's rampage echoed through the cabin, each crash and thud a reminder of the powerful force just beyond the thin walls. The grizzly, still driven by its hunger, continued to search for food, tearing apart anything that might contain a meal. The minutes dragged on, feeling like hours as the family waited in fear, hoping the bear would eventually leave. Outside, the night was still and cold, and the forest was quiet except for the chaos inside the cabin. The bear had overturned the refrigerator, ripped open cupboards, and scattered their food supplies across the floor. Despite the mess, the bear found little to eat, and its frustration grew. After what felt like an eternity to the Parkers, the bear finally lost interest. The noises began to subside as the bear, realizing there was nothing left to find, slowly made its way back toward the door. The family listened intently, barely daring to breathe as the bear lumbered out of the cabin. The heavy footsteps grew fainter as the bear retreated into the forest, leaving the wrecked kitchen behind. Only when they were certain the bear was gone did the Parkers dare to move. They emerged from the bedroom cautiously, surveying the damage that had been done. The kitchen was unrecognizable, with broken furniture, shredded food packaging, and debris scattered everywhere. Despite the destruction, the family was safe, and for that, they were immensely grateful. The bear had caused significant damage, but it had not harmed them, a small miracle in such a terrifying situation. The realization of what had just happened settled over them, and the relief of surviving the ordeal was overwhelming. In the days that followed, the Parkers contacted local wildlife authorities to report the incident. The authorities emphasized the importance of bear-proofing homes in wilderness areas, a lesson the family had learned all too well. The incident sparked discussions among the community in Golden and beyond about the challenges of living in close proximity to wildlife. The need for stronger measures to prevent such encounters became a focus, with neighbors sharing advice and experiences to ensure their homes were better protected. The Parker family returned to their cabin to clean up and repair the damage. The experience left them shaken, but also more aware of the risks that come with living in the wild. Their cabin, once a place of solace, now carried a reminder of the unpredictable nature of the wilderness. However, they knew they could not let fear drive them away from the place they loved. Instead, they took the necessary steps to fortify their home, determined to coexist safely with the wildlife that surrounded them. The encounter with the bear was a stark reminder of the power and unpredictability of nature and the importance of being prepared for anything in the heart of the wilderness. In September 2015, a team of loggers was deep in the Canadian Rockies, working tirelessly to clear a section of forest near Jasper National Park. The area, known for its dense trees and rugged terrain, was both beautiful and challenging, a place where nature reigned supreme. The logging crew, led by a seasoned foreman named Mike, was accustomed to working in remote areas far from civilization. The team had spent weeks in this particular location, methodically cutting down trees and processing the lumber for transport. The Canadian Rockies are a stunning but harsh environment where the wilderness can be both a friend and a foe. The loggers were well aware of the risks that came with their job. They knew that working in such a remote area meant they were sharing the land with a variety of wildlife, including the mighty grizzly bear. Grizzlies were not uncommon in this region, especially as they roamed the forests in search of food before the long winter hibernation. The loggers had encountered bears before, but they had always managed to avoid any serious incidents by keeping their distance and taking precautions. The camp was set up in a small clearing surrounded by towering pine trees. The men worked long hours, starting at dawn and finishing at dusk. The noise of chainsaws, the hum of machinery, and the crack of falling trees were constant throughout the day. The crew was focused on their tasks, eager to meet their deadlines and move on to the next job site. On the morning of September 15th, the team was busy with their routine work. The air was cool, and the sky was overcast, with clouds hanging low over the mountains. The sound of chainsaws echoed through the forest as the loggers went about their work. Mike, the foreman, was overseeing the operation, making sure everything was running smoothly. The team had developed a rhythm, each man knowing his role and working efficiently to get the job done. One of the loggers, a young man named Dave, was assigned to fuel the chainsaws and maintain the equipment. He was in the middle of refueling a chainsaw when he heard a rustling in the nearby bushes. At first he thought it was just the wind or a small animal, but the noise grew louder and the ground seemed to tremble slightly. Before Dave could fully comprehend what was happening, a massive grizzly bear burst through the underbrush, charging straight at him. The bear, disturbed by the noise and activity of the logging camp, was agitated and aggressive. Dave barely had time to react before the bear was upon him, knocking him to the ground with a powerful swipe of its paw. The sudden attack caught everyone off guard, and the camp erupted into chaos. The other loggers, shocked and horrified, scrambled to help their colleague, but the bear was relentless. As Dave struggled to protect himself, the bear mauled him, its claws and teeth tearing through his clothing and flesh. The men grabbed whatever tools they could find, from chainsaws to axes, in a desperate attempt to fend off the bear. The sound of shouting, combined with the roar of machinery, filled the air as the men fought to save their friend. The situation quickly spiraled out of control as the bear, now fully enraged, turned its attention to the other loggers. The grizzly bear, driven by instinct and fear, lashed out at the loggers with incredible force. The men, though experienced in handling the dangers of the wilderness, were no match for the raw power of the bear. As the bear charged toward the others, 2 more loggers were caught in its path. One man was knocked to the ground, sustaining deep wounds to his legs, while another was thrown against a tree, suffering severe injuries to his back. Despite their fear, the remaining loggers continued their desperate attempts to scare the bear away. They revved their chainsaws, banged on metal tools, and threw anything they could grab, hoping to drive the bear back into the forest. The noise and chaos eventually began to take effect. The bear, realizing that the food it sought was not worth the fight, finally retreated. It lumbered back into the woods, leaving behind a scene of devastation and injured men. The logging camp, once filled with the sounds of work, was now eerily silent, except for the groans of the injured and the distant rustle of the forest. The men who had not been hurt rushed to help their wounded colleagues. Mike, the foreman, took charge, quickly organizing the team to administer first aid and prepare the injured for transport. With no immediate medical help nearby, they had to rely on their training and the supplies they had on hand. The team used makeshift stretchers to carry the injured men to their vehicles. The drive to the nearest hospital in Jasper was long and difficult, made even more challenging by the rough terrain. Every bump in the road caused the wounded men to wince in pain, but they knew they had to keep going. The logging team had always been tight-knit, and now their bond was more crucial than ever. Once at the hospital, the injured loggers were rushed into surgery. Dave, who had been mauled first, was in critical condition, and the doctors worked tirelessly to save his life. The others, though seriously injured, were stabilized and treated for their wounds. The news of the attack spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the logging community. In the aftermath of the attack, logging companies across the region began to reassess their safety protocols. The incident was a stark reminder of the unpredictable dangers of working in grizzly bear territory. New measures were put in place to ensure that workers were better equipped and more vigilant, with an emphasis on avoiding areas known to be inhabited by bears during their active seasons. The attack in the Canadian Rockies served as a somber lesson, highlighting the delicate balance between human industry and the wild, untamed forces of nature. In October 2012, a group of friends decided to spend a weekend camping in the picturesque Appalachian Mountains, a range known for its stunning vistas and rich biodiversity. The group, consisting of 4 college friends, Mike, Lisa, Chris, and Anna, had long planned this trip as a way to reconnect and enjoy the beauty of the fall season. They chose a remote campsite near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, an area renowned for its dense forests, rolling hills, and vibrant autumn colors. The friends were experienced campers, having spent many weekends in the outdoors during their college years. They arrived at their chosen campsite on a Friday afternoon, eager to set up and begin their adventure. The site was nestled in a quiet valley, surrounded by tall trees that were just beginning to shed their leaves. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine and earth filled the atmosphere, making it the perfect setting for a peaceful getaway. The group quickly set up their tents and gathered firewood, excited to spend their evenings around the campfire, sharing stories and enjoying the tranquility of the wilderness. They were aware of the general precautions to take while camping in bear country, such as storing food properly and keeping the campsite clean. However, the remoteness of their location gave them a false sense of security. After all, grizzly bears were not typically found in this part of the Appalachian Mountains, where black bears were more common. That first night, after enjoying a hearty dinner cooked over the fire, the friends settled into their tents, leaving their food supplies packed away but not fully secured. The sounds of the forest lulled them to sleep, and the cool night air was refreshing after a long day of hiking and exploring. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear had wandered into the area, likely displaced from its usual habitat by changing weather patterns or the search for food before hibernation. The bear, drawn by the scent of the leftover food, began to circle the campsite, its powerful nose guiding it closer to the source of the smell. The forest, which had seemed so peaceful, was now harboring a dangerous predator. In the early hours of the morning, while the campers were still asleep, the bear made its move. It approached the tents silently, its massive paws barely making a sound on the forest floor. Suddenly, with a powerful swipe, the bear tore into the nearest tent where Mike and Chris were sleeping. The fabric of the tent shredded under the bear's claws, and the two friends were jolted awake by the sound of the attack. Panic quickly set in as the bear continued its assault, driven by hunger and the scent of food. Mike and Chris, still groggy from sleep, had little time to react. The bear's ferocity was overwhelming, and the tent offered no protection against its powerful jaws and claws. Lisa and Anna, in the neighboring tent, awoke to the sounds of chaos and immediately realized the danger they were in. The peaceful campsite had turned into a scene of terror, and the group was unprepared for the brutal reality of a bear attack in the wild. As the grizzly bear continued its terrifying rampage through the campsite, Lisa and Anna scrambled to find something to protect themselves. In the panic, they remembered the flares stored in their camping gear. With trembling hands, they managed to grab the flares and quickly ignited them. The sudden burst of light and heat startled the bear, causing it to pause in its attack. The bear, confused and momentarily blinded by the bright flames, hesitated, giving the campers a critical opportunity. Seizing the moment, Lisa and Anna waved the flares, trying to drive the bear away from their injured friends. The bear, now more wary of the light and noise, began to retreat slowly. The sight of the powerful predator backing off gave the group a brief sense of relief, but the damage had already been done. The bear lumbered away into the forest, leaving the campsite in disarray with torn tents and scattered supplies. The once peaceful valley was now a scene of chaos and fear. Mike and Chris were both severely injured, with deep gashes and puncture wounds from the bear's attack. They were in urgent need of medical attention, and the group knew they had to act fast. Despite their shock, Lisa and Anna worked quickly to provide first aid, doing their best to stop the bleeding and stabilize their friends. They knew the nearest hospital was miles away, and the rugged terrain would make the journey difficult. With no time to lose, they packed the essentials and began the arduous trek back to their vehicle. The path was challenging, with rough trails and steep inclines, but they pushed forward, driven by the urgency of getting Mike and Chris to safety. Every step was a struggle, but they managed to reach their car and immediately set off for the nearest hospital, which was in Asheville, North Carolina. At the hospital, the emergency team was ready to receive them. Mike and Chris were rushed into surgery, their injuries serious but not immediately life-threatening, thanks to the quick actions of their friends. The hospital staff worked tirelessly to treat the wounds, clean the deep gashes, and monitor for infections. The atmosphere was tense as Lisa and Anna waited in the lobby, their minds racing with the events of the night. In the days that followed, both Mike and Chris began the slow process of recovery. The doctors were optimistic, but they warned that the physical and emotional scars would take time to heal. The attack left a lasting impression on the group, a harsh reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the importance of vigilance in bear country. The incident also sparked a broader conversation about the risks of camping in areas where wildlife is prevalent. Local authorities increased their efforts to educate campers about the dangers of improper food storage and the necessity of bear-proofing campsites. Signs were posted throughout the Appalachian Mountains, and ranger stations offered more resources to ensure that other campers would not face the same terrifying experience. The weekend that was meant to be a peaceful getaway had turned into a nightmarish ordeal, but it also served as a valuable lesson. The group's harrowing experience underscored the need for preparedness and respect for the wild, a message that would resonate with the broader community for years to come. In August 2019, three lifelong friends, Joe, Mark, and Steve, decided to spend a day fishing on the banks of the Kenai River in Alaska. The Kenai River, known for its pristine waters and abundant fish, was a favorite spot for locals and tourists alike. The area was famous for its salmon runs, where fish of impressive size could be caught with ease. The three men, all experienced anglers, had been coming to this river for years, drawn by the promise of a good catch and the peaceful surroundings. The Kenai River, located on the Kenai Peninsula, is one of Alaska's most popular fishing destinations. The river winds through dense forests with towering spruce and birch trees lining its banks. The wilderness around the river is home to a variety of wildlife, including moose, eagles, and of course, the iconic grizzly bear. The fishermen were well aware of the presence of bears in the area, but they had never had a close encounter before. They knew the importance of being cautious and always carried bear spray, but the beauty and solitude of the river often lulled them into a sense of security. The day was perfect for fishing. The sun was shining brightly and the river was calm, its clear waters reflecting the deep blue of the sky. The men had arrived early in the morning, eager to secure their favorite spot along a secluded stretch of the riverbank. They set up their gear, baited their hooks, and settled in for what they hoped would be a fruitful day of fishing. As the morning progressed, their patience was rewarded. One by one, they began to reel in impressive catches, their coolers gradually filling with large, glistening salmon. The men were in high spirits, joking and laughing as they admired their haul. The river was quiet except for the sound of the water and the occasional splash as a fish was caught. However, the scent of fresh fish, combined with the noise and activity, had not gone unnoticed. Unbeknownst to the fishermen, a grizzly bear had been foraging in the nearby woods, drawn by the smell of their catch. The bear, driven by hunger and instinct, began to move toward the riverbank, its powerful nose guiding it to the source of the enticing scent. The thick underbrush and the men's focus on their fishing kept them unaware of the danger that was rapidly approaching. Suddenly, the serene atmosphere of the river was shattered. The grizzly bear emerged from the woods, its massive form appearing without warning just a few yards from the fishermen. Joe, who was closest to the bear, barely had time to react. The bear, its eyes fixed on the fish, charged with alarming speed and ferocity. Joe was knocked to the ground before he could even reach for his bear spray. The bear's powerful claws and teeth tore into him, the attack swift and brutal. Mark and Steve, stunned by the suddenness of the attack, scrambled to grab their bear spray, but the bear's assault on Joe was relentless. The two men finally managed to spray the bear, and the potent mist sent it retreating into the woods, leaving Joe severely injured on the ground. The once peaceful day on the river had turned into a nightmare, and the men knew that their lives had been changed forever in that terrifying moment. Mark and Steve rushed to Joe's side as soon as the bear retreated into the woods. Joe lay on the ground, severely injured, with deep gashes on his arms and chest. The severity of his injuries was evident, and the two men knew they had to act quickly to save their friend. They worked together to stop the bleeding as best they could, using their fishing gear and clothing to apply pressure to the wounds. The remote location of the river made it difficult to get help, but they knew they had to move fast. With no time to lose, Mark and Steve carefully helped Joe to his feet and supported him as they made their way back to their vehicle. The journey along the riverbank was slow and agonizing, with every step causing Joe immense pain. The fear of the bear returning loomed over them, but their focus remained on getting Joe to safety. Finally, they reached their car, and Mark quickly drove them to the nearest hospital in Soldotna, Alaska. At the hospital, the medical team was ready to treat Joe's injuries. He was rushed into the emergency room where doctors immediately began working to stabilize him. The deep wounds required extensive cleaning and stitching, and Joe was also given a blood transfusion due to the amount of blood he had lost. The atmosphere in the hospital was tense, with Mark and Steve anxiously waiting for news about their friend's condition. The doctors were able to save Joe's life, but they warned that his recovery would be long and difficult. The physical wounds would heal with time, but the emotional scars from the attack might take even longer to fade. Mark and Steve stayed by Joe's side throughout his recovery, supporting him as he began the slow process of healing. The bond between the three friends grew even stronger as they reflected on the terrifying experience that had nearly cost Joe his life. The attack left the local fishing community in shock. News of the incident spread quickly, leading to widespread discussions about the dangers of fishing in bear country. Local authorities and wildlife experts emphasized the importance of proper safety measures, including the use of bear-proof containers and the need for constant vigilance. The incident also led to talks of stricter regulations on fishing in areas known to be frequented by bears, with the goal of preventing future tragedies. The Kenai River, once a place of relaxation and enjoyment for the three friends, had become a reminder of the unpredictable dangers that nature can present. Joe's survival was a testament to his resilience and the quick thinking of his friends, but it also served as a sobering lesson for the entire community. The experience underscored the importance of respecting the wild and being prepared for the unexpected when venturing into the great outdoors. In January 2024, the picturesque ski resort of Zermatt in the Swiss Alps was bustling with tourists eager to enjoy the winter season. Nestled at the base of the iconic Matterhorn, Zermatt is known for its world-class skiing, charming chalets, and breathtaking views. Each winter, visitors from around the world flock to this serene village, seeking adventure on the slopes and relaxation in the cozy lodges. The resort was in full swing, with skiers and snowboarders carving their way down the snowy mountainsides and families enjoying the festive atmosphere. The day began like any other, with the sun shining brightly over the snow-covered peaks. The air was crisp and cold, perfect for outdoor activities. The tourists, bundled up in their winter gear, were scattered across the resort, taking in the beauty of the Alps. Among them was a group of skiers who had gathered near one of the lodges, chatting and preparing for another run down the mountain. Unbeknownst to the visitors, a grizzly bear had wandered into the area, likely disoriented and hungry. The bear's unexpected presence in this heavily populated area was unusual, as grizzlies are not typically found in the Alps, especially during winter. However, changing weather patterns and the scarcity of food in the higher elevations may have driven the bear to lower, more populated areas in search of sustenance. The bear's descent into the resort went unnoticed at first, hidden by the thick trees and deep snow. But as the bear drew closer to the lodge, its large, lumbering form became visible to the skiers nearby. At first there was confusion. Some thought it was a dog or another large animal common to the area. But as the bear moved closer, its massive size and unmistakable features became clear. Panic set in as the bear, driven by hunger and fear, charged at the group of skiers. The suddenness of the attack caught everyone off guard. The skiers, who had been chatting just moments before, were now scrambling to get out of the bear's path. One skier, who was slower to react, found himself directly in the bear's way. The bear, seeing the human as a threat or perhaps mistaking him for food, lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. The scene was chaotic. Tourists screamed and ran in every direction, trying to escape the immediate danger. The bear, still disoriented, continued to move erratically, its powerful body crashing through the snow as it sought a way out of the unfamiliar environment. The injured skier lay in the snow, his friends too shocked and frightened to help him as the bear lingered nearby. Resort staff, alerted by the commotion, rushed to the scene. They knew that any wrong move could escalate the situation, so they carefully approached, using noise and equipment to try to scare the bear away. The staff were trained for emergencies, but dealing with a wild bear in such a populated area was beyond anything they had expected. As they worked to drive the bear away, the tourists watched in horror, hoping the ordeal would end without further injury. The once peaceful resort, filled with laughter and the sound of skis on snow, had become a scene of chaos and fear. The bear's unexpected presence in Zermatt had turned a day of joy into one of terror, and the consequences of this encounter would echo far beyond the slopes of the Swiss Alps. The resort staff continued their efforts to drive the grizzly bear away from the lodge and the panicked tourists. They used loud noises, waving tools and equipment to create a barrier between the bear and the people. Slowly, the bear, still confused and agitated, began to back away from the scene. The staff, maintaining a safe distance, carefully guided the bear toward the edge of the resort, hoping it would retreat into the nearby forest. After several tense minutes, the bear finally turned and disappeared into the trees, leaving the resort in a state of shock. As the bear vanished into the wilderness, attention quickly turned to the injured skier who lay in the snow. Resort medics, who had been on standby, rushed to his aid. The skier had suffered deep wounds from the bear's attack, and his condition was critical. The medics worked quickly to stabilize him, wrapping his injuries and preparing him for transport to the nearest hospital. A rescue helicopter was called in due to the severity of his injuries and the remote location of the resort. Within minutes, the helicopter arrived, landing on a clear stretch of snow near the lodge. The injured skier was carefully loaded into the helicopter, and it lifted off, heading towards the hospital in Visp, a town not far from Zermatt. The flight was short, but every moment counted as the medical team worked to keep the skier stable. Upon arrival at the hospital, the skier was immediately taken into surgery, where doctors fought to save his life. At the hospital, the atmosphere was tense. The skier's friends and other tourists who had witnessed the attack waited anxiously for news. The doctors reported that the skier's injuries were severe, but thanks to the quick response of the resort staff and medical team, he was expected to survive. The emotional toll of the incident, however, would linger long after the physical wounds had healed. The grizzly bear's unexpected appearance in Zermatt shocked the local community and the many tourists who visit the resort each year. The incident sparked widespread concern about the changing behavior of wildlife in the region, with experts pointing to the impacts of climate change on bear migration patterns. Local authorities and wildlife experts began discussions on how to better manage the presence of wild animals in areas frequented by tourists, including implementing stricter safety protocols and improving public awareness. The attack served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of the wild, even in places where people feel safe. The once idyllic ski resort in the Swiss Alps was left to grapple with the reality that their beautiful, serene environment could also harbor unexpected dangers. The incident highlighted the need for constant vigilance and respect for the natural world, as well as the importance of being prepared for the unexpected, even in the most familiar and seemingly secure settings. In October 2014, deep in the vast wilderness of Montana, an experienced hunter named Greg Patterson set out on a solo elk hunting expedition. Greg was no stranger to the wild. He had grown up in Montana, where the rugged landscapes of the Rocky Mountains had always been his playground. Hunting had been a part of his life since he was a young boy, taught by his father and grandfather, who had passed down the skills and respect for nature that defined his approach to the sport. Montana's wilderness is known for its breathtaking beauty and challenging terrain. The forests, filled with towering pines and dense undergrowth, are home to a wide variety of wildlife, including elk, deer, wolves, and the formidable grizzly bear. The region around the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness, where Greg was hunting, is particularly famous for its healthy elk population, attracting hunters from across the country. However, it is also known for being prime grizzly bear territory, especially in the fall when bears are actively preparing for hibernation. Greg had chosen this area specifically for its remoteness and the likelihood of encountering a large bull elk. He had spent days preparing for the hunt, meticulously planning his route and gathering the necessary gear. He was well aware of the risks that came with hunting in grizzly country, and he took all the usual precautions. His rifle was always within reach, and he carried bear spray as a last resort. But Greg was confident in his abilities and trusted his instincts, which had served him well over the years. On the morning of October 12th, Greg set out before dawn, hiking deep into the forest. The air was crisp, and the ground was covered with a light frost. The quiet of the wilderness was broken only by the occasional call of a bird or the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Greg moved carefully, his senses attuned to the sights and sounds of the forest. He knew that the elk would be on the move, and he was determined to find a good vantage point before the sun fully rose. As the day wore on, Greg tracked a group of elk through the dense forest. He followed their signs, broken branches, tracks in the soft earth, and the faint scent of musk, leading him deeper into the wilderness. The hunt was going well, and Greg felt the familiar thrill of the chase. He was completely focused on his quarry, moving silently through the undergrowth, his rifle ready. However, Greg was not the only predator in the forest that day. Unbeknownst to him, a grizzly bear had made a recent kill nearby, and the scent of the elk had drawn the bear to the same area. The bear, driven by its instinct to protect its food, was lurking in a dense thicket, its powerful body hidden from view. Greg, who was absorbed in his hunt, did not notice the subtle signs of the bear's presence, the slight movement in the brush, the faint sound of heavy breathing, until it was too late. As Greg approached the thicket, the grizzly, sensing a threat, charged with terrifying speed. The bear, massive and powerful, burst from the undergrowth, closing the distance between them in seconds. Greg, though experienced and quick to react, was caught off guard. He raised his rifle, but the bear was upon him before he could aim. The attack was swift and brutal, the bear's claws and teeth inflicting fatal wounds. The wilderness that Greg had loved so much had turned on him in an instant, leaving him no chance to defend himself. Greg's lifeless body was discovered later that day by another group of hunters who were passing through the area. The scene was grim, with signs of the violent struggle evident in the disturbed earth and the deep gashes on Greg's body. The hunters, shaken by the discovery, quickly radioed for help. Authorities from the nearby town of Livingston, Montana, responded swiftly, but it was clear that nothing could be done to save Greg. The bear had long since retreated into the wilderness, leaving behind a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the untamed wild. Greg's death sent shockwaves through the local community and the wider hunting world. He was well known and respected, not just for his skill as a hunter, but for his deep respect for nature. News of the incident spread quickly, leading to widespread discussions about the inherent risks of hunting in areas populated by grizzly bears. The tragedy underscored the unpredictable nature of the wilderness, even for those with years of experience. In the weeks following the attack, wildlife experts and local authorities began to re-examine the regulations surrounding hunting in grizzly territory. There were calls for stricter measures to protect hunters, such as mandatory bear safety courses and the use of more advanced deterrent technologies. Some advocated for restricting hunting in areas known to be frequented by bears during the critical pre-hibernation months, while others emphasized the need for better education on how to avoid dangerous encounters. The incident also reignited the debate over how best to manage bear populations in regions where human activities increasingly encroach on wildlife habitats. As climate change alters ecosystems and food sources become more scarce, bears are being pushed into closer contact with humans, leading to more frequent and sometimes deadly interactions. Greg's death served as a tragic reminder of the delicate balance between respecting nature and the need for human safety. A memorial service was held in Livingston where Greg's friends, family, and fellow hunters gathered to honor his memory. They remembered him as a man who lived for the thrill of the hunt, but always with a deep reverence for the wilderness he loved. The service was a somber occasion, but it also served as a catalyst for change. The hunting community vowed to take the lessons of Greg's death to heart, ensuring that future generations of hunters would be better equipped to navigate the challenges of the wild. Greg's legacy became a symbol of the need for greater awareness and respect for the powerful forces of nature that define the Montana wilderness. His story would be told for years to come, a cautionary tale that emphasized the importance of preparation, vigilance, and humility in the face of the untamed world.